All right. Well, while everyone is joining in, we can at least get started with the introductions and some housekeeping items. So, hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Vallon. I'm actually the event coordinator for Barracuda MSP. And I want to start off by thanking everyone so much for joining our webinar today on how to build an MSP marketing plan that works for your 2021 planning. Um, so, um, Before we get started, I did have a couple of housekeeping items to go over. The first thing is we want to keep this as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions that arise throughout the presentation, please feel free to drop those in the chat or in the Q&A section. What I'll do throughout the presentation is compile a list of all those questions. And at the very end, we'll be able to answer those live for everyone. And that kind of leads me into my next part, which is today I'm joined by Angela Leavitt, who is the founder of Mojo Marketing. And Angela brings nearly 20 years of sales and marketing experience. And then in 2010, she founded Mojo Marketing, which is the first and only full service agency with an exclusive focus on the telecom, IT, and cloud services industries. Since then, she's worked with over 200 companies, helping them with all of their sales and marketing needs. Angela, I'm so happy to have you here. And with that, I'll hand it off to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah, and welcome everyone. I'm really excited to share some really important information with you all today. And yeah, just like Sarah said, please feel free at any time to put any questions that you have into the questions section. I'm happy to stay on as long as necessary to get them answered. Sarah already gave me a really great introduction, so I don't need to go over this, but yeah, really excited to be here. Have done a lot of speaking throughout the years. Many of you may have been on some of the webinars we've done in the past with Barracuda. Really happy about our partnership. And as Sarah mentioned, 10 years ago, I founded Mojo Marketing. I had been on the telecom side of things, heading up marketing for a company that eventually sold to Vonage Business. But in that time, we've exclusively worked with B2B telecom, IT, and cloud services companies. So the information I'm sharing with you today is very targeted. In the last few years, we've gotten even more specialized with MSPs specifically as we've been working with more and more of them. So I'm excited to share what we have learned, and this is just a sampling of some of the customers that we've worked with over the last 10 years. So great. What we see as a typical MSP that we talk to or that we work with in the market is that, you know, they have some very specific and aggressive growth goals, right? And they may have different reasons for those goals. Some of them want to be acquired, or some of them want to acquire. Some of them went into business to be number one. You know, they're really competitive, like not number two and number three. Some of them recognize that, hey, that this industry is really consolidating and changing, and so we need to stay ahead of it in order to continue to, to survive. And at the same time, while these MSPs want to build a growth engine, they're running into some challenges. And over the last couple of years, the challenges that we tend to see coming from MSPs are pretty consistent. One is that they're kind of stuck in some older techniques, some older ways of doing things, maybe things that worked, 10, 15, even things that worked 5 years ago aren't necessarily working today. So maybe they're, buying cold lists. They're still engaging in cold calling or, very event heavy type of like sales and marketing activities. Especially as we know this year, events like in-person events have just like gone, and we don't know when they're coming back. It could be another year or so. Many of them, they have a website and they've put a lot of time and effort and money into it, and maybe they like certain aspects of it, but it's not really working for them. It's not creating sales opportunities, and so that's really frustrating for them. And, they also tend to recognize that having their digital and their website not work is a big problem, and it's getting to be a bigger problem. We'll talk a little bit in a few minutes about what successful MSPs have done this year, and the ones that have actually really grown compared to those who haven't, and the ones that really had their digital and some of their process in place to take advantage of the lockdown and different things are the ones that have come out ahead. Continuing with this, like more common challenges we see within MSPs, you can see over here, I kind of break them down into two categories: not enough and too much, right? So not enough sales opportunities, not able to really understand, like if they are doing marketing activities, understand the ROI and be able to point and say, hey, this activity gave us this lift over here on sales. They don't have enough brand recognition or differentiation among other MSPs. Some of them don't have effective strategy. They're just kind of, winging it a little bit and trying a bunch of different things. They don't have time to do it all. They may not have an internal marketing resource. Or if they do, maybe that internal marketing resource doesn't have all the knowledge or experience to effectively run digital. If we look at the too much, too many, that tends to be, again, what we see a lot of what we call like winging it, just trying random things and hoping something will work. Tactics without strategy, so that kind of goes with winging it. And all these things just tend to create frustration, chaos, anxiety, stress, and overwhelm because, you know your business is awesome. You could be helping so many more companies. And you're just trying to build this growth engine so that your input can be predictable. And so you're running into these challenges. So if any of these things resonated with you, I wanted to let you know that the good news is you are in the right place because we are going to talk about exactly these challenges, right? And exactly what you need to do to fix them. And I'm going to go over a lot of information. If any of you have been on my webinars before, I like to fly through a lot of content and make sure that I'm giving you as much as I possibly can. So keep in mind one thing: if you can walk away today with one thing that you heard that you can implement in the next 30 days, keep your ears open for that one thing, because I'm going to talk about a lot of things, but your business best, and kind of keep your ears open for that one thing that can really be effective for you. So first, I want to take a real quick look at the state of the economy that we're in and talk about what's changed. And obviously, I don't need to spend a lot of time here because we've all lived through this year. That from a stock market perspective, we had a very volatile year, right? When I was giving webinars in April and May, this graph wasn't looking so great, right? But we've had some recovery, but still, if you look at it, it's one thing we can kind of all agree on is there's some unpredictability happening. The good news is that as you look longer term at these things, like a 10-year picture or even a 50-year picture, that drop looks less dramatic, right? The lesson here that I try to convey is that we've been through this before, right? As a society, like we've been through economic upheaval, and some companies have come out ahead of that, right? So when this all happened in March and April and things got really crazy, I started to do a lot of research into like, okay, what can we learn from the companies from the Great Recession, from the Great Depression? Like, what did some companies do differently compared to others? And I'm going to share some of that with you today. We're also, unemployment has been something kind of chaotic this year. Obviously, we had a big spike. It's recovering. We're 1 point better from October over September. But there's some people saying that, some of the things that are coming back are more like temp jobs or seasonal jobs, and that like we need to really look at the long-term unemployment rate to see what's happening, and that's that's still a cause for concern. What we can all agree on is that we're in a period of uncertainty, and that we're in a period of a little bit of chaos, and we don't really know what's coming because we don't know how much longer we're going to be in this pandemic, what sort of stimulus packages are going to come out. So that's where we are, right? And the lesson again here is that to keep in mind that every crisis creates opportunities, and there are some companies that and I'm seeing it with some of the companies we work with, and people that I know, is that they're having their best year this year, right? There are opportunities out there. What did these companies have in common? Microsoft, HP, GE, and Disney. They were all startups during steep economic declines, right? So there is hope. This is a quote by Warren Buffett that I really like. Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful, right? So we've seen a little bit this year and of some companies having a bit of knee-jerk reaction and pulling back on things that they were doing, and others saying, hey, this is an opportunity. While others are pulling back resources, I'm going to put more resources into things, right? And so the strategy we adopt in times of economic turmoil can spell business success or financial disaster, from Stephen Allen. So we're going to talk about this a little bit. More specifically, I wanted to talk about the technology channel. We've also, besides the economic things happening, we have things happening within our own industry, right? So 5G coming to market, satellite internet, blockchain, security, AI, IoT, all these things are kind of contributing to some changes and some shifts that need to be made, perhaps in what you're doing and what you're offering. And then some different trends, right? Like lots of M&As taking place in this industry constantly. Race to the bottom pricing with things like bandwidth, right? Like people expecting, demanding higher bandwidth for lower pricing, guiding companies into a digital transformation. And then, of course, we have giants invading the market. So, Microsoft, Amazon, some of these companies coming in and competing, offering services like direct to client that we haven't seen before. So there's just a lot happening. Some things of, this is an excellent article. I'm actually going to speed through this a little bit. If you have not read some of these Forrester articles that have come out this year around the IT channel and some of the predictions, I highly suggest that you follow them. Jay McBain in particular is one of the analysts really focused on this channel. But he's talked about, what do we know? How has COVID affected the tech channel? And these are some of the takeaways that are listed here in the article. That obviously there's been some short-term revenue loss, but a burst in triage services. Your brand is more essential than ever, and that there is a huge opportunity for MSPs to give that more local, high-touch, empathetic type of response. The new normal is going to be more agile, responsive, and fast-moving. And again, that's where a company like an MSP can position themselves as a better choice over some of these larger carriers, like going direct to some of the big giants, right? And millions, as we know, millions of people now working from home. So, what that brings with it from a cloud, from a security standpoint, and the opportunities that open up there. Happy to send you all of these slides, but if I suggest taking a screenshot and going and finding this article and anything else that Jay McBain has said, and kind of taking a look at that stuff, because it's really genius. And according to them, the companies that will be successful through this crisis will focus on these three areas. And the first area is asset development. And so what that means is, really understanding your buyer and your buyer behavior before and during the down, like right now. buying behavior has changed. And so how well do you understand that? How well do you understand how your buyer is buying and what's important to them now? Because by understanding that, you can create the right assets to bring them into your sales pipeline, right? And so then looking at market development. So who to connect with and how to connect with them, right? The winners of this game are the ones that are the most connected. And we're going to talk about that in a couple minutes. And finally, working on operational efficiency. So how to accomplish more with less, how to work smarter, and how to reduce waste. Some other ways to think of this: asset development, embracing buyer enablement, right? So creating enough assets that the buyer can buy from you with ease. We'll talk about that in a minute. Market development, we talked about having that be network, expanding your network, so cementing your thought leadership, increasing the size and the value of the network that you have, and letting data drive your decisions. And from an operational efficiency standpoint, what I'm going to share with you today is aligning your sales and marketing. This is where so much waste occurs, and ensuring that you have the right tech stacks when it comes to sales and marketing software, so that you can make sure that all of those things are working in your favor. So these are the things that we're going to dive into. As you can see, marketing is involved in all of these areas. So it's really important. One thing I wanted to share with you about buying, right, and the buying cycle. This is from Gartner, and this is a graph that shows the distribution of time spent by buying groups in a B2B buying cycle. And you will notice here, the one that is highlighted is that buyers will spend 17% of their time meeting with potential suppliers. But if you look to the left, they spend 27% of their time researching independently online, right? Keep going, 22% meeting with their buying group, and then 18% researching independently offline. So buyers increasingly want to spend less and less time with the salesperson, right? They just don't want to do it. We're all like this, right? We all want to be self-directed now. And I think there's been a lag on the B2B side, especially with this idea of like, yes, well, that works for cars, or that works for, laptops or things like that. But a B2B, like what I'm selling, is very complex. And therefore it does, this doesn't apply. But I'm telling you, it does apply to our industry, and we are seeing it. This is another example of what Gartner laid out as the buying process. And so what we have traditionally thought of as our sales funnel, where, hey, at the top we're building awareness and we get a lead, and and then the lead turns into an opportunity, and we create a proposal, and then we send it over and they sign it. Not so much anymore, especially with some of these more complex buys and the B2B buying process. This highlights all of the elements that might be considered marketing's responsibility. So you can see, like, the stars are next to web searches or white paper downloads or online content shared, social media conversations. So another shift in mindset that we need to make is that no longer can we think of, marketing's job is just the front stage to bring in the opportunity, and then we hand it over to sales and sales takes it from there. We need to really break down the walls between sales and marketing and understand that we're in this together, and we might have distinct responsibilities, but we have to be more connected and interwoven than ever before in order to be effective, in order to guide buyers through this very complicated process that they are in. 71% of tech buyers reach vendor selection after a digital-only journey. Think about that. And this number continues to rise. Digital-only journey, meaning, again, they don't want to have those conversations and lengthy sales calls all the time, right? So as we're leading up to is that one of the trends that we need to have happen, and those who are successful, who have been successful this year, have been further embracing buyer enablement. Gartner explains this as the provisioning of information that supports the completion of critical activities necessary to make a purchase. That is a lot of words. So I revised Gartner's quote and I say, make digital buying ridiculously easy, right? How easy is it to buy from you if I am a potential customer? How easy is it for me to get information that will help me make decisions and lead myself down the sales process? So what does this actually look like for you? What we're trying to do is to turn your website and your digital assets into a virtual salesperson. So here's what it looks like in action. That your website contains some pricing and packaging info. It's the number one thing that customers want to see is understand your pricing and have some idea of ballparks before they reach out and have that conversation. They want to see buying guides and comparison worksheets, right? Like, help me make this decision. Help me compare, apples to apples or apples to oranges, if that's what they are. And the more tools that you can create to help people do that, the better. And by the way, if you do create them and they're available on your website and optimized, you're much more likely to get a lot more traffic, because in any industry, the top things that are searched around practically any keyword is pricing and then comparison guides, right? Or many searches will be, they're aware of one company, but they want to check out the competitors. So they'll put in, for example, Datto competitors, right? They want to check okay, I know Datto, I've had a conversation, but who are their competitors? Who else should I be considering? So there's an opportunity there to create some of those sheets and help people make those comparisons. Frequently asked questions are excellent assets. Chatbots becoming way more popular, helping people just get answers to their questions quickly. Case studies to help them see what you do in action, and scheduling tools, right? We all know how much of a pain it can be going back and forth trying to email about when we're available and whatnot. There are so many just easy, ready to go scheduling tools where you can send someone a link and say, select the time that's best for you, or even better, have that on your website, right? So they don't have to email anybody. It's right there for them to schedule with a salesperson. The goal here is to create a frictionless, self-guided buying experience. So one challenge, if you choose to accept it, that I put out there for you is look at your sales process, document it start to finish, and identify all the different points of friction where someone might say, oh God, that's painful. I don't want to do it anymore, right? And work to build assets around removing that friction point, right? And there's a lot of ideas here on this slide today, but again, really important that we start to think more about making it easy to buy from the buyer's perspective. Organizations that do this successfully raise their revenue by 20%. And just wanted to show you an example of this. So this is a UCaaS provider. I'm sure many of you are aware of Nextiva. They are not a client of ours, but I just think they do a good job on something that is kind of complex, right? And you can see they've built this really cool tool, and you can see from a pricing standpoint, they're saying starts at, right? They're not locked into this pricing, and there's a little, widget on the left that you can play with. If I want this to be month to month or contract, I can select a number of users I think I might have, and I can, this is a format we're all really familiar with. So if I'm a buyer and I'm comparing a company that has a tool like this compared to one that doesn't, which one is easier to buy from? Which one is giving me the information that I need to further myself through the sales process? The answer is pretty easy, right? It's this one. And yet many MSPs, many people within our industry are resistant to putting this out here. And this is why I start with it. And you might be saying to yourself, like, yeah, that works for this company, this large company. Everyone can put a little bundled package together like this that gives someone a little bit of sense of control of what they can expect if they're going to have a sales conversation with you. Okay, so that's kind of what that looks like. Our second point was about cementing thought leadership. So there's an old saying that no one ever got fired for hiring IBM, right? No one ever got fired for going with the big guys. Well, have you ever stopped to think, like, why is that? Why don't, why go with the big guys who are slower and who, maybe their customer service isn't as good? Well, the main reason is that they have built trust. From the years of being in business and people seeing their names over and over again, there is, even though you kind of know, like, yeah, there's going to be some issues like working with them, they're not going away, right? And they're the big guys for a reason. They did some things right along the way. So they have inherently built trust over all of these years, right? And trust means I have less risk. So that's why someone doesn't get fired for choosing IBM. There's a lot less risk than if I go with a smaller provider and something happens with them, they go under, or they grow too fast and they can't support their customers properly, things like that. So as humans, we're constantly trying to not only move toward things that are good for us, we're even more motivated to move away from things that are bad for us, right? So risk aversion is very, very high. This is a snapshot of the technology channels from Forrester. And you can see here in this graphic, there's 5,000 MSSPs and 50,000 MSPs. So when you look at these numbers, you start to think, well, gosh, how am I going to stand out from these other 50,000, 55,000? How am I going to build trust and become the one that people select out of all of these? And one of the answers is that you establish thought leadership, right? You set yourself up as the go-to, and that this helps you not only differentiate, but build that innate trust so that more people will just start to naturally come your way. 82% of decision makers say that their trust in organizations providing thought leadership increased. 41% of C-suite executives say they have invited an organization to an RFP process after seeing its thought leadership. Okay, so what exactly does this mean? What does thought leadership in action look like? Well, it looks like public speaking. That's one way to establish it, right? So especially at conferences or with partners of trusted entities, right? So when we're back into conference season, getting yourself those speaking positions, getting on panels, those types of things. Even doing it virtually now, right? Being a guest on a webinar or launching your own video series, right? Speaking publicly does a world of good in the vein of thought leadership. Building a strong social following, right? Think about how you feel when you don't know a company very well, but maybe you check out their LinkedIn page or their Facebook page and you see they have 50,000 followers, right? Versus maybe one that has 100, right? So like, even though those followers, may or may not be legitimate, like something happens in our brains and we say like, oh, okay, this company is legitimate. They've got this big following. Conducting and publishing original research is one of the most effective ways to establish thought leadership as well. And this doesn't have to be really complicated. You can do a survey of your customer base and say, maybe an attitude survey around cybersecurity post-COVID, right? And run a survey, gather some information, and publish your research in an ebook or a white paper, an infographic, something like that. That will get a lot of attention from media, from lots of people sharing it, that type of thing. So that's a great way to establish thought leadership. Consistent publishing of original content, however, is also key. So while original research, that might not be something you can do all the time, maybe once a year, but you can consistently publish original content, things like blogging, infographics on a monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly basis, so that there's constantly new things coming out from you, that you kind of become this go-to entity. And of course, embracing and leading by being on the cutting edge of current tools and trends, right? It's hard to be thought of as a thought leader if you're kind of stuck 5 years in the past with certain things, right? So keeping yourself current on what's happening in the industry, what's happening, around the world, and like communicating those things to your customers and to your prospect base, right? Communicating those things publicly. So doing this, positioning yourself as a thought leader, does some amazing things for you. It separates you from the rest who are not doing this, because what we just looked at, that takes some effort, right? And so hardly anybody's doing it, especially on the MSP side. Like there aren't like a whole lot of companies like fully going after that thought leadership position. So it's an excellent way to separate you from the herd. It takes that risk out of buying from you, and it makes you the IBM. That's the goal, right? Like, how do you become the no-brainer choice? Because you've built up such a reputation that, people are knocking down your door to work for you. That's our goal there. Okay. Next strategy is to really leverage data. Never before have we had access to more data. It is a sales and marketing leaders' dream come true. When I first started in sales and marketing, there was a lot of just what we would call like spray and pray, right? We don't have data into things like direct mail or running like radio commercials or TV advertising. Like that, those are things that we were doing 10, 15 years ago. But today we have data in everything. Like never before have we had more visibility into what people are doing on your website, what content they're consuming, how they're engaging in social, what they're doing. We can finally see so much more of like what's working, what's not working, where the trouble is, and how to fix it. The caveat is that we have to have the right tracking tools in place to do this. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this when we get to tech stack. But there is data everywhere for you to track. And when you do it, it tells the story and it shows you exactly what's going on. And I'm going to share an example of this. So this is a digital funnel that we had set up for one of our clients. And this was from earlier this year. And we ran a campaign for about 3 months. And this is the the data at that point. So we were averaging about, you can see about 3,800 visitors to the page a month, and leads were people filling out the form on the page. So 34. Then opportunities a month, we were getting 22. So of those leads, the opportunities are the sales team confirms that yes, this is a qualified lead, and we are engaging in a conversation. And then customers per month was about 1.3 based on this little snapshot of time. Now, if we look at the conversion ratios below, the visitor to lead conversion was a little less than 1%. So that's something that we could certainly work to improve, but it's not terrible, right? So we would like to see that up maybe between 1 and 2%. The lead to opportunity conversion, about 65%. That's actually pretty good. So it's telling us that the leads and the people that are coming to the page, like they're the right people, right? And the people that are filling out the form are the right people. Of course, we can continue to refine that. Now, the opportunity to customer ratio is where things like really fall, right? Of those opportunities, only about 6% of them closed, right? And I can tell you, every MSP that I sit down with, one of the first questions I ask is like, what's your close ratio? How's your team doing? And the sense is that, if I just get more at bats, I can close deals left and right all day long. My close ratio is 60, 70, 80% sometimes, right? Well, the story here is that there's a problem with the sales process, right? The the opportunities are coming in, and something's happening from, you know, yes, this is an opportunity to close. So what this data showed us is that we need to go back and look at the sales process and maybe talk to the salespeople, like what's happening here? Like why aren't these closing? Do you need more support? Do we need more sales tools? Do we need more case studies? Like what concerns and issues are you coming up against? So this is just an example of how when you're tracking these things, you can identify with like surgical level accuracy where the problems are. Without this level of visibility, you're kind of, you know, flying blind. So again, we're going to talk more about like the tools to do these kinds of things in just a minute, but I want to just get you thinking about data, all the data that's there for the taking, and for your opportunities to to capture it. Great. So now we're at aligning sales and marketing, and this kind of goes, you know, feeds in from what we were just talking about. So I don't know what things look like at your organization, but in many organizations and within many MSPs that we talk to, there is conflict between sales and marketing, and a little bit of healthy conflict and competition is normal. However, total misalignment is really costly. Decreased sales productivity and wasted marketing efforts due to misalignment are costing U.S. companies $1 trillion a year. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, but drilling down into this, you can kind of get a little bit more sense of why that's happening. 79% of leads never convert to sales, which is disappointing. But this was the one that practically made me fall out of my chair, is that 73% of leads that get passed over to salespeople are never contacted, right? And so you can kind of see where that misalignment can happen. Another thing that we see frequently in the MSPs we work with is that maybe the leads are contacted, but they're contacted really early in their journey, and they're not ready for the sales conversation yet. And so they're never followed up with again, right? They're marked as, not a lead and forgotten about, when in fact, those are leads. Those are excellent leads. They're just like a seed that was planted, and they need some nurturing. They need some water and fertilizer, and they'll turn into a customer in 6 months, right? So that's an example of misalignment. The good news is that organizations with good alignment have amazing results. Faster profit growth. They close a lot more deals, and they achieve much higher revenue. So what does this look like? I've given entire presentations on aligning sales and marketing. I'm just giving you like the very high level of what this looks like, but I want to get you thinking about it. And even if you have a small team of, one salesperson, one marketing person, if you have no marketing person, you still have to align your sales and marketing strategies so that they are working, so that your marketing is actually feeding into your sales and vice versa, right? So this is just a high level, like what this looks like. So first is that there are common goals and plans set. No longer can the marketing team sit in one boardroom and the sales team in another boardroom and bang out their individual strategies. The strategy is the company growth strategy, which should be, done at the executive level and include any sales or marketing leaders that you have. And you agree on the buyer personas, which buyer is your ideal buyer, and how you're going to prioritize going after that, right? That ideal buyer. Your definitions, what is a sales qualified lead versus a marketing qualified lead? When will marketing pass it off to sales? Things like that. And then the KPIs that each group will be measured on. You then execute your plans, right? And your campaigns, your processes, and you have the right tools in place. And you analyze and measure, just like the graphic I just showed you, right? It's not enough to run campaigns anymore. We want to look at the data, measure what's there, look at the wins and look at the losses, and understand when we win, why did we win? When we lose, why did we lose? And what do we need to ensure that more of the losses turn into wins. And finally, like having regular communication. So, sales and marketing together in meetings. There's an MSP that we work with out of out of the Midwest. We love working with them, but their VP of marketing was just allowed to start attending sales meetings, right? And I just thought, oh my gosh, this is just so backwards. So you should have been in there from the beginning. Mutual shadowing, right? Having marketing people sit in with salespeople and understand, hear it direct from the customers themselves, and vice versa. Have salespeople sitting in on a marketing strategy meeting so that they understand kind of what the marketing team is going through, and obviously to celebrate those wins together, because again, these are areas where there can be tension, where the sales team blames the marketing team blames the sales team. So it's really important to build that cohesiveness. We need to work together better than we ever have before. And so celebrating the wins, when a campaign does well, even a certain aspect of a campaign is performing well, to make sure that those things are celebrated and recognized on both sides. So, our goal is to create a happy partnership between sales and marketing. And that is the goal that I would have for your organization. And finally, we'll talk about what does this effective tech stack look like? So how do you implement these things as you're going forward? So one of the most important is that your CRM and marketing automation software can, first, that you have it, and second, that they talk to each other, right? Marketing automation software is what enables us to track the graph that I showed you a few slides back, right? Where we can see exactly where people are coming into your site from, what they're doing on the site, where they go from there, what things they like, where they convert, having all that data, right? It's even better if the marketing automation software can talk to the CRM, or if they're within the same platform, right? Because then we're really connecting the dots between the marketing activities and the sales activities. And that's the case that I showed you a few minutes ago with the graph, right? So here are some of those softwares, right? HubSpot is one that is our go-to. We are a HubSpot agency. We work with a lot of companies on HubSpot. Marketo is another. I know Barracuda is on Marketo, right? Another excellent software. Pardot is the one that Salesforce acquired a few years ago. And Hatchbuck is one. Actually, they just rebranded, but they're an excellent tool that's a little bit more price sensitive, right? So if you're not ready to kind of take that plunge into HubSpot, Marketo, or Pardot, which are kind of like the three giants, Hatchbuck was just renamed Benchmark One. So that's a great one to check out. And what's awesome about having these things is that you just get incredible insights into the behaviors of what is happening. These things are not easy necessarily to set up. They are time intensive. You need to kind of scrub your lists and do things and tag things and create automations. But once it's set up, it just saves hours because these automations are in place. So remember, one of the key things that companies are going to do that are thriving is operational efficiency. This falls under that, right? Operational efficiency. And I mentioned a few minutes ago the idea that so many, 71% of leads are never contacted. And then I would say there's a very high number that are contacted one time, and that's it. When we know from a marketing and sales standpoint, it takes about 20 touches to get something to work, right? To get someone to respond. So with this type of software, you can implement nurture campaigns so that you are consistently staying in front of those potential buyers with information that they will find really valuable, and it's automated. It's happening behind the scenes, whether your sales person is doing it or not, right? And this is where there is so much opportunity for MSPs, right? I don't know that there's a single one that I've ever spoken to that has had effective nurture campaigns in place. And if you are one of them, give yourself like a huge pat on the back because you're doing a great job. But this is another thing that can mean so much and make such an impact on your activities. Other tools to consider are tools that can like connect the softwares that you have together. So Zapier is a company that we like to use a lot to see like, oh, okay, when when someone fills out a form over here, I want this information sent over there, right? Zapier has a lot of those like recipes pre-built that will connect things and eliminate a lot of manual work that you or someone on your team needs to do, and also eliminate like potential error in transferring some of those things. And we already talked about this a little bit, but calendar tools, right? Eliminate all that back and forth email of when are you available? Oh, I can't do that. Oh no, I got booked. Just get a calendar tool and send it to people. It will change your life, and you will love it. The whole point of an effective tech stack and automation is this idea that it is working while you sleep, and you don't have to do these menial tasks anymore. It's taken care of for you. 80% of marketing automation users see an increase in leads, and I'm just going to show you an example. This is one very, very simple automation set up on our website. So if someone fills out a form on our website, they very soon after, about 15 minutes later, they get an email from me that says, hey, I saw you filled out a form on our website. I'm excited to talk to you. I'd love to learn a little more about you. Can you fill out this quick survey? The survey asks them a few questions and asks them to self-identify, like, are you an MSP? Are you a carrier? Are you a VAR? What's the size of your company? Things like that. And as they fill out the survey, those things are being appended to their contact record in our HubSpot, right? So the next time I go to pull a list of MSPs, they're coming with it, right? So they're kind of doing some of the work for me. Once the survey is completed, they get a link to my calendar to be able to set up an appointment. And for me, this happens a few times a week where I just, this happens, right? Traffic is coming into to our website. People are filling out forms. They get the survey, they fill out the survey, they get my calendar link, they fill it out, and then an appointment appears on my calendar, right? At a time that works for me because I already set the preset. So this is just one little example of how a simple automation can make your life so much easier. More examples is that think about how difficult it is to keep your database clean, that when someone is marked as a prospect, but then they buy, right? This is a simple automation that like, hey, when someone gets moved into the one category, then it automatically updates their contact record to be customer. So when you pull that customer list, it's accurate and it's not, you're not missing people that needed to be manually added. Or, another example is, hey, if someone moves from one stage of the sales pipeline from needs discovered to proposal presented, I want that to reflect a bottom of funnel stage, like that's where they are. And I might have campaigns set up for my bottom of funnel people because I know they're really close. And so I want to keep in close contact with them. Again, there's a million scenarios you could come up with how automation can work for you. The idea here is that we're removing anything that is currently being done manually so that your time is freed up for more selling and more specific, business growth initiatives. So in summary, we talked about a lot of stuff today. Again, there's a lot of opportunity ahead of you. But I encourage you to use this time to tackle these types of things, right? Get really intimate with your buyers, understand who they are, what their concerns are, how they're buying, create an amazing experience for them, starting with the buying process, make it as easy as possible to buy from you. Explore new verticals potentially, build your brand, fine-tune your website, start working on your thought leadership. There's lots of bargains out there right now, right? So seize those, align your sales and marketing efforts, implement your effective tech stack, outsmart your competition, and strengthen your foundation. Like there are companies who are doing some of these things and killing it, taking the time where they're not having to travel so much, and using that time and those budgets to really leapfrog over their competition and get very digital savvy and very digital forward. So as we said earlier, focusing on 3 areas: successful companies, asset development, market development, operational efficiency. We've talked about some tactics within each of those today. So I hope this was super helpful for you. as a final little gift I want to extend for you, if any of you out there would like to see, are thinking about your website and how it's working, and if it's not generating as many sales opportunities for you as you would like, we have some diagnostic tools that we can run your website through and give you a really accurate picture of like what's working on it and what's not, and exactly what to fix. Absolutely free. Happy to help you do that assessment. So feel free to reach out to me. Also, again, if you would like these slides, I'm happy to share those with you as well. But with that, I'm going to turn it over back to Sarah and see if we have any questions.
Okay, yeah, we have a few that have come through. Also, I would like to also mention that we did record this session today. So we will email this out to everyone in addition to any other slides that Angela may provide. So just rest assured, there'll be a recording so you can get all of Angela's fun information along with the slides as well. So one question that came through is, how do you deal with the fact that your prospects go directly with a colleague for a recommendation? And then more with that question is, the buying process shows that they're not doing too much online or offline research. Should we work on more awareness campaigns? The referrals are 90% of our leads right now, and we want to add more from marketing efforts.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And that falls into that category where it said that, they spend about, let me see if I can flip back to that slide, about 25% researching independently offline. So what falls into that is talking to your network and getting referrals, right? And so that is something that is very prevalent within our industry, that many C levels, VP levels, they will talk to their other trusted C levels and VP levels to get those recommendations, right? They will always almost always back up those recommendations with some of their own research. So I think that the thought leadership comes into play very well there, in terms of making sure that when you are referred and when you are in that position, that you look good, right? We've had customers that we've talked to that they get a referral, or someone was referred over to them, but if their website, or if there's something that's sort of off-putting about their digital presence, they may lose that opportunity anyway, right? And so I would encourage you to look at those things and say, okay, let's make sure that when we do get those referrals, there's nothing that if that potential customer goes to my website, looks at my social, does some digging around, there's nothing that's going to cause them pause, right? So that's number one. Now, to get more of those types of referrals, I think that you need to kind of build out that referral network, look at potentially developing more case studies, building out specific referral campaigns within your customer base, those types of things. So there's definitely, you can put an entire marketing plan in place around making yourself more referable and, approaching your current customers to mine them for more referrals. So it's definitely a worthy cause, and it's low-hanging fruit for sure. But it just kind of takes some time and effort to do. So I hope I answered that question.
Okay, yeah. On to the second question. So this came earlier in your presentation. Are there any best practices on sharing prices on your website in a way where you are still presenting the value of your services or your company? We are concerned that competitors may use pricing against us if it's easily accessible.
Yeah, and this is an excellent question, and a point that we talk about a lot with our customers. And again, I think we need to think a little bit more about the potential buyer and how they're feeling about it, rather than your potential competition. I mean, your potential competition can get your pricing information by posing as a potential customer and going through it, or just having someone else who's shopping you share that with them, right? So they can get your pricing information whether you want to kind of keep it hidden or not, right? So the idea of putting something out on your website, and it doesn't need to be your full pricing suite, right? If we go back to the example of Nextiva, they're not, no one's buying Nextiva off the website, right? That's not what's happening there. What's happening is it's putting some power in the hands of the person who's buying, and making them feel like they have a level of control, and that their level of trust with Nextiva has gone up, right? And so, put yourself in the position of buying something, and one company has their pricing really transparent right on their website, and the other doesn't. The other wants you to kind of like go through a couple of sales calls and before they're willing to share pricing. Which one is easier to do business with, right? Which one do you inherently trust a little bit more, right? Probably the one that's more transparent and just has it out there, right? And so, and I will suggest too that this trend is coming, and so you cannot do it and be less of a trend setter and have all your other competitors get to it first and be the easy to buy from choice. Or, as we talked about, you can embrace current trends and say, hey, this is where the puck is moving, so I'm going to set this up first. And yes, my competitors may use it against me, but the net positive over the long run is going to be more beneficial to me, because we are establishing trust with our buyers, we're putting it out there, and eventually everyone is going to be out there. I mean, it's just a matter of time before this will be absolutely expected, or people won't do business with you. So this is kind of a choice you have to make, right? Of, do we do this now and be the leaders of this trend, or do we resist it and come to it in a few years when everyone else has kind of already gone there? So that's what I would suggest.
Okay, perfect. And we just got a follow-up question for that. But they said, I see the benefit of putting pricing on our website. However, how do I respond to my managers who say everything we offer is custom for each lead / like they are always argue that nothing is out of the box?
Yeah, and I would challenge to try to find something that, while everything may be custom, can you put some examples, like example packages or example programs that you've run for customers in the past, right? We're the same way, right? Like practically everything that we do for customers is customized, but we can give some packages and give people some idea of what we've done in the past for other customers, and like what that has cost. So that's what I would just suggest to do. And again, it doesn't have to be everything, but is there one thing that you can put together a little pricing grid on? Maybe it's not your full suite of services, but maybe it's your work from home cybersecurity package or something, right? Like what's one thing that you can do just to give people an idea?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. So I'm looking at the clock now. It looks like we are running out of time. But if anyone has any other questions or anything like that, the chat and the Q&A sections are both still open, so you can still write that in, or you can email Angela or myself directly, and we can make sure any of your questions can get answered. But with that, thank you everyone for your time today. We really appreciated you all joining us today. I definitely recommend that you take a look at Angela's website and her business, and take a look at the services that she offers. I think that free gift for the website assessment is super beneficial, and I would encourage everyone to take part of that. Stay tuned for the recording and the slides sent by us. And we hope to see you on our next webinar. And Angela, thank you so much again. We really appreciated it today. And I definitely learned some things myself. So thank you again. And, we hope to see you soon.
Thanks for having me. Have a good day, everyone.